I think we are looking at, and what I'm grappling with, are things that we are seeing enacted daily through both executive orders as well as what I would consider and define as extra legal methods, right? So everything Elon Musk and his folks are doing is policy retrenchment. And so, there are a couple of big challenges with policy retrenchment. I think from the human perspective, there's a deep sense of loss and grief that needs to be processed about that. Because the twofold challenge is none of these policies were enacted easily or breezily, I like to say, right? These are not things that, we're just kind of, oh yeah, today let's put this policy in place to protect communities, right? And so the example I thought of this morning is I remember being in college 35 years ago and participating in ACT UP demonstrations, right? To make sure that, there was special attention paid to the fact that folks in the LGBTQI plus community were dying of a disease and there was no government intervention and interaction, to really figure out what was going on and how we could not just protect communities, although that was a really important component of it, but also use academic research to understand the mechanisms by which this disease was spreading. So public health epidemiological strategies, as well as some of the medical advances that we now know exist today, right? That was activism that brought that apart, brought that together. And it was not just activism on the ACT UP side, there was definitely an inside-outside game that took place, right? With folks inside the government, at the NIH, at the CDC, at NIH, NIAID, sorry, the National Institute for Allergens and Infectious Diseases, right? Which, fun fact, for those of you who don't follow a lot of NIAID, that is actually the institute run by Dr. Anthony Fauci, right? And so, again, some of these attacks serve dual political purposes, right? It serves to delegitimize certainly Dr. Fauci and the role that he took standing up, right? When in the face of the COVID pandemic, another infectious disease, of course, but it has this ripple effect on all of these areas of research, which may or may not be part of the net that they are trying to cast, right, in terms of policy retrenchment. So I do think about that. I also remember that, ACT UP demonstrations were not sufficient. It took so-called innocent contagion, right? And what I mean by that is folks like a Ryan White, folks like an Arthur Ashe, the famous Black tennis player who acquired HIV through a blood transfusion after open heart surgery, right? That so-called innocent contagion was part of what made it safe for there to be these interventions and these policies. And of course, Ryan White had to die. Arthur Ashe had to die, right? Only two of the millions of people who were not famous, right? Who did not kind of get that same attention and value of their lives. So that part is really about both the emotional response of grief, but also about really seeing just how far we've come and how quickly it can all go away.